Hey, Farah.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today. We're going to jump into a weird topic today. Ooh, that was already judgy, but it's different. It's new.
It's
So
not weird, Laura.
it's different. It's new. It's new to me. We're going to just dive into it. We're going to talk about sologamy. Farah, have you ever heard of sologamy before?
You introduced me to the topic, and then I went on a very deep and twisted route of looking into it on Instagram, the hashtag Sologamy, and found a lot of things about this Indian woman in India and falling in love with herself and marrying herself. And I was like, I had no idea this was out there, and I was very curious, and so I'm excited to chat with you about it.
Yes, I'm excited. I came across it and was like, that's an interesting concept. Well, as I get older and I've never been married, is this an option in my future? So, yes, went down a rabbit hole.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I looked it up, of course. And what is sologamy or autogamy? And it is marriage by a person to themselves. So supporters of the practice argue that it affirms one's own value and leads to a happier life.
Don't think they're wrong in that. That's for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. So what have you seen in the Instagram rabbit hole?
A lot of it was just this almost mocking it to a certain extent,
Mm.
which I thought was interesting because I didn't expect that part of it. But like, how can you really do this? Is this legitimate? What does this even mean? Like, is this a narcissistic, like, approach to life? Like, are you just falling in love with yourself because you can't really, And so it was, there was a lot of judgment revolving around it. And I'm totally not even addressing this because, like, oh, what you said when we first began, but I thought about it but I think that's out there because there is this kind of like negative viewpoint of like, who like, oh, you love so, it's like when you're a kid, you love yourself so much you might as well go marry yourself, like things like that. Like,
Okay.
is that, and you're like, fine. So I that surprised me. But then I think there's beauty in everything, in life. But I think in this concept of really like loving yourself and understanding yourself and having a relationship with yourself, I think is critical. Like, you can only really show up for others the way you've showed up for yourself. And so I think it's incredible. And I think it's kind of this brilliant way to kind of view your relationship and make it a little bit more concrete. And, I've done my own little relationships with myself over this past year, after separating from my partner. And so I think it's really valuable. But I can kind of see, both sides of as always, I can always see both sides of the scale.
Yeah, when I think about marriage, it's such a construct around religion or
Hmm.
around the church or around property. And, it's such a politicized concept. And so the idea where, you would marry, in a heterosexual relationship, right? You'd marry, and that was, your partnership, and that's how you're moving through the universe. And, you're going to have children, and that's what marriage is for. It's the constructs of yeah, property ownership, right? So the idea that you'd marry yourself, yeah, I mean, that can be so offensive because it's again reiterating the fact that I don't need a man. I don't need in more updated terms, a partner to complete me. But
Hmm.
it's that I'm torn like you on the other side of like, commercially speaking, like the wedding industry is insane, right? Like how much money do we spend on weddings
It's too
and
much, yeah, for a lot of
yeah,
people.
it's insane. So if I was in the wedding industry, I would lean into it hard because it's like, oh, here's another chance. Like you don't have to find someone. Let's throw a huge party, get the dress, get
Honor
the
of
cake,
you.
just you. And plus, I'm sure the groom stuff is like the most the least expensive part of getting married anyway.
Yeah.
So get rid of them and let's lean into that. So I mean, if marriage is just a money making scheme, either for the church or the government or the wedding industry, then we should all be for sologamy.
Yeah. Well, and it's this idea of what does it mean to really be in partnership with yourself and like making it publicly known that that's the most important, like that's what I think of when I think of marriage. Like you're pretty much saying this person is the most important person in my life and I am tied to them forever, and this is like the like we are going to then merge our lives as one, and like this union, right, this union. Actually, funny enough, when I was getting married, I they were like, I was having a little bit of a meltdown, to say the least, right before the wedding. Everything that could go wrong was going wrong. And, as zen as I try to be, I was having a little bit of a diva moment, to be perfectly honest. And I had also taken Adderall, which I probably shouldn't have done. At least illegal drugs, you guys. I was taking drugs I was not prescribed, and I probably shouldn't have done that too. Full disclosure of what was going on there. But I thought it would make me more efficient. It did not work. The opposite occurred. And so sorry, I probably should have said this, but whatever. So that one of my girlfriends was like, one of my best friends, it was my maid of honor. She goes, this is a marriage, not a wedding. And I was like, oh yeah, because no matter what, if we have like if the flowers are in the right arrangement or the tablecloths are slightly crooked, that's not going to make a difference. This is the things I was obsessing about because I'm crazy. These are the things that are not going, like that's not going to change that I still get to marry my best friend at the end of today. And so like no matter what, I still get to be married, even if the wedding isn't perfect. And that kind of relinquished this like pressure I had on my shoulders. But then you think about it in this concept of relationship with self, and it's like being able to really celebrate that union with you. I think it's beautiful. I think it's incredible. I'm like all for it. I think that more people should even explore the idea of it. I don't know if you need to have a ceremony. It's like, yeah, you can make your birthday party every year, kind of a celebration of you. So like you can just do it that way. But I do think that there is something to be said, and like I'm happy that we're talking about it today.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I don't know if you remember this, but it was such a big deal. Dennis Rodman married himself.
Yeah.
1996. You remember that?
Yes, totally. The dress, he was wearing a dress, and everyone was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, he's in a dress.
And it was so offensive. Everybody couldn't believe, and Dennis Rodman was such a adverse character in the 90s, right? The colored hair and the bad boy attitude. And then he shows up in a dress to marry himself. And it was just like, how more obscene could you be than Dennis Rodman? And it's interesting that's 1996, that's 2022. Now we're talking about it and we have a word for it. And
Yeah.
it's much more accepted.
Hmm. Well, and he was such a trailblazer in so many different ways. And I think he liked going against the grain and going against tradition. He liked the opposition and the controversy that it created. I think he thrived in that. A man wearing a dress in the first place. Well, now commonplace, like it's like no big deal anymore. But I think back then it was just very like taboo. And I think that's what he was going for too. But how can we normalize this? Like, what if this became something that was like typical in our society? Like, how would that shift really the dynamics of family and like structure and all of that? Like, I think that's when things change. People are like, like the fabric of our society is going to like deteriorate, and it's like, or it's just going to be different.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say? Do you feel like you have a relationship with yourself? And like, can you describe that more?
Yeah. I mean, I think, in your 30s, there's such a different exploration of yourself and your love for yourself and what that looks like. And, I want to party. Like, is, the possibilities are ever evolving. Like, I think you grow up and you have daydreams about what wedding will be like. What will that one day be like? And, especially in heteronormative ways, that's who I am. And, I daydream about a wedding that doesn't include any opinion by a groom anyway. So, what could that really look like and be like? But, I don't think I'd have the audacity to throw myself a whole big wedding. Cause I love that you said about like a birthday party, how do you show up and throw yourself a party and celebrate yourself? And I think there's so many ways in which our culture tells women not to celebrate themselves and not be loud and, acknowledge our accomplishments and acknowledge how we care about each other. So, I said earlier, audacity to throw a wedding, but, it is such a glorious thing of like, it's against the grain
Yeah.
to love yourself so much that you get to be out there and celebrate it. And every occasion to acknowledge and be proud of yourself, we should step into.
Absolutely. Well, and I love that you brought that up because it's like, is it like so like obscene or unheard of for us to love ourselves and like love ourselves to the extent that we can make it publicly known? Sometimes even when I write posts or like talk about self-love, I have this like twinge of like, how are people going to perceive this? Do I just seem too cocky or something like that? How dare I love myself? And it's like, we should all love ourselves. This should be something that should be expected and shared and encouraged. But for some reason we like create shame around this idea of how dare you actually like feel like you're enough as you are. And it's sad. And I think consumerism, there's so much that plays into part for us always feeling this lack thereof, that and like this real fear that we're not enough. And it's like, well, what if I was enough? What if I really did like truly accept and like celebrate who I am already, and not this
Yeah.
future version, or it not be tacked on to some accomplishment, because we get to celebrate ourselves, when you graduate college, or high school, or even like now going to celebrate like graduations recently for like my daughter's like preschool, and it's like them going into kindergarten, and it was like this whole ceremony, and it was like so fun, and we got to like really like acknowledge the kids accomplishments, in this very like micro scale. But um that was like, I think it becomes normal. It's normalized in certain ways that society deems acceptable. But like, what if we decided to create that for ourselves and in our own way? And like, who are we? Like, why not? Like, why can't we do that?
Yeah. It's what really comes to mind, Vera, this might sound odd, but like make yourself the damn pancakes.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through a breakup a few months ago, and I was out walking my dog, Sunday a little later than normal. So, families were cooking breakfast together. And so the neighborhood smelled like, cooking bacon and coffee. And, you could just, I'm not looking through windows, but, you could just, yeah, it's like, what's going on in there? Can I
Excuse
come?
me.
You know,
Syrup, please. Thank you. I know.
yeah. But you could just tell like there's these families in making breakfast together. And, that's something I really long for, is making breakfast with someone else and dancing in the kitchen and just having that romantic moment. And, we finished our walk and I was really melancholy. Like, missing that person that, I started a relationship with and, didn't work out. And like, oh, I really thought that there'd be pancakes here. And so, I just kind of like, I had a Taylor Swift moment. I shook it off.
Yeah.
I went to the store, bought everything, and I made myself pancakes and turned the music on full blast and danced around and, made myself the pancakes and had a breakfast. And it was a nice way just to acknowledge that, yeah, there's not a partner here to make them with me, but I'm still gonna live in the joy of Sunday morning breakfast and do it for myself. And so, you know, zoom out, there is appeal to like getting married to yourself and to getting to have that ceremony and the beauty and in the rituals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, and I think that I like that you brought this up though, because I think you can have this. Like, I think sometimes we're like, we need a partner to complete us, or we need a partner or someone to be able to enjoy life with. And it's like, what if I enjoyed life with myself? And like, what if I did all the things? Like, instead of feeling like this has to be future oriented or attached to someone else, like, and the condition of that person, and it's like, why not just do all the things that I want to do and that make me happy? And if there's someone there, great. If there's not, then I'm freaking rocking this on my own. And like, that's a part of it too. I love that you made Sunday breakfast. I love pancakes in particular. And Sunday breakfast used to be a big thing for my partner and I and our daughter. And now I still do it. I do it on my own. And I do it if I just have Bella, like every weekend. It's like we make pancakes on the weekends. That's like my big thing with her. And, I didn't even acknowledge in my mind that I just was like, well, I'm doing this because I want to. And like now recognizing that it could be a sad moment. And sometimes I do get a little sad when I think about it, but it is like, make the damn pancakes, like just make them and like enjoy life. Or, I went on a couple solo trips this past year, and I always was like, I can't travel alone. Like that's like absurd. I've never traveled alone. That would be so scary, you know? And well, who am I going to talk to and what am I going to do? Literally one of the best trips that I've ever taken my entire life. And now I do them regularly. Now I'm like, no shame. I'm like, yeah, I'm going on my own. If you guys want to come, you can, but I'm good. I'll be gone during these weeks. If you want to join me, share along the journey, feel free. But that I don't need to wait. I don't need to have permission to do these things. Like I get to do them on my own because I decided to, and that I get to take myself out to eat for dinner and like, or I buy myself joy. I'm like, it's my special day. Like I'm going to buy myself some joy or like, I'm going to congratulate myself and like, what kind of partner do I want? And can I be that partner for myself? And I think after being in partnership with someone for, 12 years, to be able to like let go of that and to step in and be that person for myself so that I don't feel any lack has been a real transformation and it's been difficult, but it's been so rewarding at the same time.
There's I want to get your opinion on it because I think that there's some shadow thoughts here in that, if I can provide all these things for myself and I'm whole all by myself and I don't need someone else, then would that keep
Mm.
people away? Like, would that mean then you're like, you've put all these bricks up and, you're cemented in then yourself. So am I keeping people away? Or do I have room for someone else? What do you think about that?
I am, yeah, I'm curious about the same thing. And it's something that I'm really exploring right now after being consciously single for the past like year and a half. I've did not want anyone in, like I'm open to the idea. I've gone on a few dates, but I was like, unless you're, we won't talk about my checkpoints that I have for dating, but unless you're in all these marks, like, no, like this isn't happening. And so I think that there is this idea of, really being okay. Hold on, what was the question again? Sorry, I was just thinking of my checkpoints and I was like, I'm supposed to get on the
I derailed you, and that's okay because I think
That's okay.
checkpoints are a big thing too about like you've committed to this for yourself, you want someone else to as well. But
Yeah.
the original question was like, does being in your own, you know,
Oh,
yeah, keep others at bay or maybe be a turn off? If you can do everything and you give it all to yourself, you buy yourself the jewelry, then why do I need someone else to buy me any jewelry?
Lizzo has been a great reminder of this. Like, I love Lizzo more than most things in life. And she's like, I'm my own soulmate. I think she actually has a song called Soulmate. And
Yes,
she's
it's
like,
called soulmate.
soulmate. I was like, and it's talking about herself and like her being her own soulmate. And it's like buying myself the flowers and all of that. And so I've stepped fully into that this past year. I've been like, yeah, I am my own soulmate and I want to, and like, but how do I know how I want someone to treat me if I don't know how I want to be treated? So I think that there's a good, it's an importance of understanding what those things are and what's important to you, but
Yeah.
at the same time, not being opposed to being open and vulnerable to be able to have that in your life with someone else as well. But I personally think that someone else should enhance your life, that they shouldn't complete you. Like I want to be complete on my own so that I don't feel this need for partnership in order to feel whole. But at the same time, I want them to enhance my life. Like, can you add that sparkle of magic and companionship while we both are kind of living this, like being autonomous on our own and like complete and happy, but that we just when we come together, it just takes it to that next level. That's my personal thought. What do you think about it?
No, I mean, absolutely, absolutely. But what I get hung up in is being told, and maybe this is just such societal pressure, is that like people want to be needed. So
Hmm.
what does that really look like and feel like? And, I think immature love is needing someone in ways that are materialistic. So needing because I need you to, help me with like buying a house or paying the rent, or, I need you for, feeding the kids, or I need you to, do XYZ. And, I really reject that idea. Yet I feel like men really are bought into like, well, if you don't need me, then what's the point? Like they have a desire to be needed. And I think all of us do. I don't mean just men. I think you want to feel like you're valued. But the word need is very triggering to me because it really correlates to needy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got everything I need and have and want myself. Right. So, I don't need somebody in those terms, but I think you could need somebody in a partnership, in a way where it's like, you're each other's cheerleaders and best friends and need you to show up as your whole self, if that's a way to be needed. But that word really like, ooh, it just stings a little.
Yeah. I look at it as I don't need you. I remember saying this to my ex. I was like, I don't need you. I want you in my life. So like I don't need you to be there because like I know that I'm whole on my own, but I want you to be there because you make my life better and I'm happier when you're in it. And that I feel like was the shift that I needed to be able to recognize that I didn't he wasn't required for me to like keep going. And now even becoming single and like truly, removing him from my life to know that I can be okay and on my own was a huge learning curve for me and built a ton of confidence and kind of reminded me of my strength because I think I lost that for a little bit. But that again, I don't need him, but do I still want him? And do I even still want partnership, even though I know I don't need anyone in my life to be able to survive and thrive, like, and to live a joyous life? I don't need anyone, but I would, like, I think I'm finally getting to the point where, like, I wouldn't mind. I kind of want someone to be able to, go for walks with or make dinner with some nights, and to be able to have conversations and, like, and again, I can find that in friendship. I can find that in so many different ways. But I think that at least for me, I think that that is something that I'm now recognizing that I want in my life.
I think there's some, you know, freedom and some, liberation in that change of mind, your own mind, where you say, I don't need you, I want you. But maybe this is codependency coming out, but how, and you don't have to share. I've said that to dates before too. Um, Never a partner, but there's kind of a look of pain on their face, or it's a jab to their ego.
Sure.
There's like this empowerment of like, I want you, like that's sexy to me. That's very desirable. I
Oh,
don't
tell me
need
about
you.
that. Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I think I have said that, and their feelings are slightly hurt of like, I don't need you, but I want you. And I'm trying to like enforce that, like, yes, I choose you. I'm not dependent upon you, but also that I desire you. But
Yeah.
it's been taken before as something that hurts. I think it hurts the ego. How did your conversation go?
Oh no, this was definitely a very detrimental conversation to his ego. I remember. I was like, that is actually how it was perceived. We were at, funny enough, this is funny that we're talking about this. I was in Bali. I was scootering. We were on scooters in Bali in like the rice fields of Bali. You can't make this shit up. This is real. This is what happened. And I had been there for a couple weeks. I was helping out with a yoga teacher training with my teacher. And he was like, if you're going to Bali for work, I'm going to come down for a week. It's like, might as well. Honestly, afterwards, he was like, I came down to make sure you came back. And I was like,
Oh, it's Bali.
I'm always a little bit of a free spirit. So we were there, and I think though before that point, I really felt like I needed him. I was like, we had been together for so long. We were so integrated into each other's life. Everything was woven together that I was like, I can't survive without him. Like, I can't live without him. And when I was there, I was like, and I'm just like, wind in my hair, like we're scooting around, and I'm like, I don't need you. I just want you. And in my mind, I thought that was so romantic. I was like, oh, this is such like a great thing. He's obviously going to take this really well. And he was like, you don't need me? What do you mean you don't need me? And I was like, he's like, I need you. And I was like, you don't need me. You just like want me, And so then we got off the scooter, and like, you could tell his mind was like racing. He's like, we got to sit down and talk about this. And I was like, oh, wait. I was like, I think you're taking this the wrong way, But then I think that there is. I think that, we all want to feel needed, but I think, and no knock to him. My ex is very independent, incredibly intelligent, owns his fucking life, and like is rocking it. But I think there was a codependency aspect in our relationship that I don't think I recognized at that point. But he really did need me to help build him up to feel like who he was. And but that actually worked to our detriment because he wasn't doing that for himself. And so now looking back on it, we needed to both be whole. The Khalil Gibran poem about being the two pillars to support ourselves was our part of our wedding ceremony, and our vows to each other. And so I always thought it was so important for us to both be individual pillars that like hold up the home, and that we didn't merge into each other. Like they say, like you're the two separate trees, and like your vine or your branches don't blend in with one another. That you can stay separate. And I always thought that was something that was really important to us, so that we both understood. But I think, after you're in a relationship with so long, like you said, like, I don't need you to help with the kids. I can feed my kid on my own. I can make all these things. I can pay my bills on my own. But hey, it would be nice to like have someone to help me do those things. And so like I think that there can be, and like I guess it's how you present it. He did not take it well, and honestly I think after that point he was always really afraid then that I would leave, because I think then if someone doesn't need you, then they can just leave. And like I think for people that might have fear of abandonment and different issues around that, like it can be really triggering. And I didn't recognize that at the time. But I think at this point I would be very open, and like I almost want I at this point I don't want to be with anybody that feels like they need me in order to survive. Like I want to enhance their life. I want them to enhance my life. I want to be around them all the time. I want to feel like I can't live without them, but deep down know that I can. And I hope that my partner has that same understanding and confidence within themselves. And I think that's an important trait.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's beautiful. I think, thank you for sharing your personal story with your relationship around that. Cause I think, I've, gotten to a point where, I said that to a date, but, I've had a relationship end, and, that's what was screamed at me, was like, you don't even need me. Which is like, well, yeah, you knew that this whole time. So, and not realizing like, there's, I think, investments you make to another person that, um, sometimes that's what they need, is to be needed. And, knowing that that's not the right person for you, if that's, a value of theirs.
Well, and that it's not, there's not an error in your thought process, that maybe that they need to really evaluate why they feel like they need to be needed. And I think of different astrologies. I'm thinking of this person in particular, I believe is a Libra. And you think of the Libra, and they need the partnership, and that dual like combination is actually really critical to them. They feel like they do need a partner in order to like balance them out. And so I think some people lean into it, but I think there's a healthy way to lean into that. And then there's that then you can slip into codependency. And just being honest about where that is, and like why do you feel needed, and like having the self study in order to understand that, I think is critical to keep it healthy. Because like I was in a codependent relationship that was unhealthy, and I recognized that later on. And then I had to be honest about how I played a part in that, in creating that relationship and that dynamic. And that was a big pill to swallow. That was hard for me, because I wanted to believe that I did my best, but like, how did we create that life and like that relationship, and how did that turn toxic? And that was some learning lessons, to say the least. And like, how do I prevent myself from recreating that in the future? And and that's why I would say within this past year, Laura, we've talked about this, like I bought this ring. I don't wear it on my ring finger anymore, but I took off my wedding band because I didn't feel like it was authentic, because I wasn't in that partnership, in that relationship anymore. But that I didn't want necessarily men coming up to me and hitting on me. I wanted to still feel like I was committed to something, and I was like, I'm committed to myself. And it was such like, I was like, I'm going to go buy myself a diamond band, or like a little diamond like ring, and I'm gonna wear this. And this is not because and to a certain extent I wanted to kind of shield myself from other people, but it was because I was like, and every time I looked down on it, because I was looking down and I without it and missing, and I was sad. I felt this like shame a little bit that I had like didn't have that anymore. And I was like, no, I'm gonna wear this for myself, and this is my relationship with who I am and my soul and my heart, and I'm going to dedicate this time to like get to know me and to date myself and to court myself. and remind myself that I am enough on my own and I am worthy of true love and happiness. And that's, and like, I don't need a man or anyone to be able to satisfy me on that level. I can do that for myself. And like I kept, that was a full year. I switched it over finally, to my middle finger because I still love the band, and it's a good reminder of that, a little token of that. But um, and then once it was empty, I was like, I don't need a band to represent this anymore because it's so much, it's so a part of me, and my foundation is finally like rock solid again, and it was just shaky for a period of time.
Nice. That's gorgeous. Thank you.
Oh, it's been a journey. That most of us don't take, right? Like, I think there's a lot of people that don't ever really know what they want and know who they are because they're always giving to the people around them or trying to fit these molds of what they should be. That we don't really actually ever stop and think, what do I want? Who am I? And what life do I want to create for myself? Versus, like, and that's how I was before. Like, how do I make our life good? How do I create the life that he wants? How do I create the life of a wife? And, like, how should I present myself and as a mother? And I kind of lost sight of myself. But then, people go through that, and then 20 years later, they go through a midlife crisis because they never even really, they've taken the route that they felt like everyone was telling them to take, that they don't even know what they want. And I just didn't want to do that. So
Yeah. Well, I think we find, there's definitely some pros and cons in the sologamy world, right? Like, I think, as we've demonstrated, there's some cons to that neediness of the traditional constitution of marriage, but there's also just so much beauty in that commitment to ourselves and the way I think we find rituals to honor ourselves or symbols to ground ourselves in that commitment. And, it's just whether it's an Instagram hashtag or not, like it's a beautiful practice to be committed to who you really are and show up in the world as that person.
yeah, 100% agree. And I think the practice, and now thinking of us kind of wrapping up, is like, this ritual of picking love songs for ourselves and dedicating them to ourselves. I think is such a, you introduced this to me, and I was like, at first I was like, who am I to, like, is this love song? Like, can I really give myself this love song? And like, what does that mean and represent? And like, the kind of the behind the shadow side of like wanting to express love and dedicate something to myself like that. And it's so easy for me to give that to someone else and think of that, but to give it to myself, I was like, who am I to like dedicate this? So it's, how can we really show up for ourselves and love ourselves, and be okay with that and own that? It's, yeah. What is your love song this week?
Mine is Sally Cinnamon by the Stone Roses, and it is a very juvenile love song. Um, about your lips tasting like a cherry slushy kind of thing, that summer love when you're in high school. And yeah, again, a juvenile love that's just so precious and sweet. And, as we roll into summertime right now, I'm definitely, feeling that for myself, that playful nature and that young energy.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah. Well, and what if you had a summer fling with yourself?
Yes, this is the summer of self-love.
Yes, I love this so much. You said that, and I was like, wow, I want to have a fling with myself this summer.
I'm a good time.
I was like, I'm going to show myself a great time this summer. Sorry, that sounds really racy. It was not intended in that way, but
I'm sorry. I intend it in all ways. So yes.
yes, yes, yes. So, but kind of tagging along with that is, my song this week is PYT. I'm gonna play it right after we wrap this up. PYT is like pretty young thing, like just like owning. Like, I think so much of this past year has been owning who I am and like just like celebrating me. And I think for so long my worth was attributed to what I was giving and how I was offering, myself to others, as a mom, as a wife, as an agent, as all these other things, that like just being able to like step into it and like rock it in like my own individual way without any of these like preconceived notions affecting me, and just like being able to like, no one knows who, like you don't know me, you don't like know me from Adam, but like I'm awesome and I'm gonna like be sassy and be who I am, no matter what, and be authentic and like just showing up in every moment that way. And PYT helps me do that. Michael Jackson for life as one of my favorite artists. And so I'm just like grateful for that song and the influence it's had in my life for sure.
Very cool. Well, I'm gonna jam on that song too as soon as we're done here. That sounds wonderful.
I know. And if you're interested in sharing along or even contributing to some of the songs for all the listeners out there, we have created a playlist. Laura started a playlist, and it is Wild Women Wednesday songs, and our love songs that are dedicated to ourselves, and you know, a practice that we offer up to all of you, and to just even think about what that means and what you would like to, how you want to dedicate and show up for yourself this week.
Love it. Thanks, Farrah, for your time today.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for bringing up this topic and introducing it to me and discussing it in more detail. It's been fun, as
Okay.
always.
See you next week.
Okay, thanks. Bye.